So I finally got my business taxes filed for the year, and after sending in the final numbers, I realized something kinda crazy. I'm rich. Not yachts and diamonds rich, obviously, because that's dumb, but more like I don't have to stress over bills and I don't have to take jobs that I don't like kind of rich. And in my opinion, the freedom to pursue the things you want is the definition of rich, not just how much stuff you can buy. Over the course of my career, I've heard so many people say that the only way to survive in the arts is by getting rich doing something else. But that's just not true, because I built 100% of my business using creative skills everyone said were useless. So in this video, I'm gonna break down those skills, and then I'm gonna get into the ones that were most helpful in finding creative financial freedom. And then we're going to talk about why mastering those skills is going to be critical if you want to survive in an AI future. Okay, so before we really get into this video, I want to make one thing clear. Rich is relative. I'm saying I'm rich here, but I don't own a house. I drive a 2010 Subaru where the CD player is probably the most high-tech thing in there. And by a lot of people's standards, okay, most people's standards, I live a pretty, let's say, non-luxurious lifestyle. On the flip side of that, I've seen a good chunk of the world through documentary filmmaking, and I've spent time in places where my version of modest would be considered mind-blowingly luxurious. Even at home in Canada, life is hard right now for a lot of people, and even though I live in a one-bedroom apartment, I know it could be so much worse. So this video isn't about flexing or pretending like it's cool to live like Andrew Tate. When I say I'm rich, I'm not talking about mansions and Bugattis, because that stuff is hollow and ultimately meaningless. I'm talking about what rich looks like for me, which means being debt-free, taking a vacation without stressing, being able to cover unexpected bills, and maybe most importantly for me, saying no to jobs that I don't feel good about. If you've ever seen the financial guy Ramit Sethi floating around the internet, he talks a lot about this online, this idea that your rich life isn't about constant consumption or luxury goods. It's about the freedom to spend money on what matters to you while spending as little as possible on the things that don't matter.
Instead, conscious spending is about choosing the things you love enough to spend extravagantly on.
I think you get the point, but when I talk about getting rich, I'm talking about freedom, not materialism. And if you've ever been broke, and believe me, I have been many times, you know nothing makes you feel less free than not being able to invest in the things you care about. All through my life, people have said the same thing. If you want to be rich, you're wasting your time in the arts. But as someone who feels like I'm actually living my version of a rich life right now, I want to challenge that idea, because I owe pretty much everything I have to those unprofitable creative skills. And honestly, I think those skills are going to be even more important as we head into this weird AI future where suddenly that future-proof coding job all those people told me to get back in the day isn't looking so secure. So for the first useless skill I want to talk about, let's start in kind of an unexpected place, the Navy SEALs, specifically with Jocko Willink. Odds are you've heard of him because he's all over the internet, but just in case, Jocko is a former SEAL commander turned internet superstar whose whole brand is about applying military-style discipline and mindsets to everyday life. Like, the guy gets up at 4:30 a.m. to lift weights, and he's so massive, I'm pretty sure they called him the silverback gorilla in the Navy. So basically, I'm describing the ultimate alpha male. He's fought in wars and built this wildly successful business empire, and what's more manly than that? So on paper, you'd think we'd have very different educational backgrounds, right? But actually, we studied the same thing in college, English.
You're gonna starve to death.
Now, when it comes to useless degrees, English, or really I should say literature, because you don't have to be a native English speaker for this stuff to apply, but whatever you call it, an English degree is usually near the bottom of most people's lists, maybe just edging out philosophy or classics for least profitable thing you could study. And honestly, I just picked it because I was 17 and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I liked reading and writing, so I thought, why not? Now, Jocko, on the other hand, was much older when he started his degree, and he'd already been deployed to war zones. You'd expect a guy like that to study, I don't know, military history or logistics or management or something, right? So why would a no-nonsense, like war-hardened Navy SEAL study literature, the softest of the soft? Well, the short version is communication. Jocko realized that no matter how strong you are or how good you are at tactics or strategy, none of it matters if you can't communicate.
They learn how to communicate. They learn the importance of communications. They learn not to go into dynamic scenarios without a radio so they can communicate with the rest of their troops.
In his view, mastering language in all of its forms was a leadership tool that made a real difference on the battlefield and in life. If you want to lead people or motivate teams or explain complex ideas under pressure, you need language. You need clarity. And there is no clarity without communication. And that always stuck with me because it's exactly what I found in my own career in film. Communication is a huge part of the job, possibly even more important than my raw technical skills with the camera. Like whether it's pitching projects or approaching new clients, or putting people at ease in front of the camera, working with crews, or I don't know, applying for grants. It's all about communication. You can be the best filmmaker, photographer, or physical specimen of a Navy SEAL in the world, but if you can't communicate, you're in trouble. That's what arts degrees like English are really about. Learning to analyze the world and clearly express your ideas about it. In my case, I'm not the most talented filmmaker and I'm definitely not the most connected, but I've always been able to communicate my ideas clearly and present myself professionally. I genuinely believe that's why I've landed jobs over other people, especially early on. So the next time your drunk uncle starts roasting you for studying the arts, just remind him that Jocko Willink is on your side. But even if school is way behind you or you never had any interest in a degree at all, I totally get it. You absolutely do not need a degree in film or anything else to make valuable creative work. No one outside academia has ever asked to see my degree for what that's worth, and I'm pretty sure nobody would care even if I'd gone to like UCLA film school and graduated top of my class. The idea that you need school to succeed has been debunked over and over again, like Quentin Tarantino, Jay-Z, Richard Branson, all high school dropouts. Now, just to be clear, I do think finishing high school is a good idea, so stay in school, kids. But again, the most valuable thing I got from my English degree wasn't the diploma, it was the communication skills. And in the age of email and DMs, the most powerful communication skill you can have is writing. And it's not just for the emails, though honestly the vast majority of my paid offers do come through email, but beyond that, literally everything I do is downstream of writing. Maybe it's negotiating rates or pitching clients, drafting scripts, it's all writing. And considering how vital writing is for long-term success, it's kind of shocking that people don't spend more time getting better at it. Seriously, everything creative that I do comes back to writing. Without writing, there are no pitch decks, which means no grant money, which means no films, no project outlines, none of these YouTube videos, none of that would exist. I'm not Peter McKinnon who can just sit down and be entertaining on camera.
What's up, everybody? Peter McKinnon here. Welcome back to yet another video.
And the only way I can make these videos coherent is to write detailed outlines. Now, obviously, I'm not reading it exactly word for word, and I'm sure you can tell where I kind of go off script sometimes, but the core of this channel isn't me just hitting record and then rambling to a camera. It's me in a coffee shop with an idea and then writing outlines and making notes until it makes sense. Plus, beyond YouTube itself, if you've ever tried to build an internet business, you know the foundation is email sales. You can't just cold message people asking for money. You need to offer value first, usually in the form of high quality free content like a newsletter, which means writing. Like, I put a ton of effort into writing a newsletter that people actually want to open, and it seems to be working. My open rates are consistently above 50%, which is more than double the industry average, I believe, and I genuinely think that it's only because I put so much effort into the writing. I guess I might as well go full plug and say that if you want to get that newsletter, about 15,000 other people are finding it useful, and I think you will too. It's free, and I only send it when I've got something useful to say, maybe once every week or two. I'll put a link in the description, but back to the main point, there'd be no way I could publish that regularly on top of making these YouTube videos and working full-time as a cinematographer if I wasn't comfortable writing. These days, writing might feel like a thing of the past, like it's for tortured poet types who never want to make any money. But I promise you, in the age of the internet and AI, it's one of the most valuable creative skills you can have. Whether you're trying to grow an audience or raise money for a film or convince a producer to hire you, it's all communication. It's all writing. Just look at the people who influence you, whether it's Jocko or Michelle Obama. A lot of those people have written a book, and that book will play a major role in their business model. I actually believe in the power of writing so much that I'm currently doing a master's degree in creative nonfiction right now because I'm that confident that writing will continue to pay off in the future. So if anyone tries to tell you writing is just for writers, that's not true. Okay, so let's say I've sold you on the idea that writing equals communication, which equals money. Then next fair question is, how do you get better at it? Simple. You read. Reading is on the decline globally, mostly because there are a million more passive ways to entertain yourself. Like TikTok is always going to feel easier than picking up a book, but reading is more important than ever. And not just for improving your writing, but for understanding the world and spotting opportunities. And yes, I really do mean that reading can help make you money, not in a vague self-improvement sense, but in a real, actionable way. Good books give you ideas for creative projects. That's great. But they also teach you how to think. Books are the cheapest way of gaining access to other people's experience. And for 20 bucks, you can get the results of years or sometimes decades of work. Reading also gives you a major unfair advantage in film or really anything you do because most people just don't read. If you read even one book a month about your industry or subject, whether that's filmmaking or anything else, you're in the top 5% for knowledge. That makes you better at solving problems and spotting opportunities than someone who didn't read that book. Now imagine if you read 20 books, it wouldn't take long for you to know way more than all your competitors. It doesn't all have to be technical or filmmaking specific. Like filmmakers who read about both marketing and storytelling will make better work, and they'll also know how to sell it. Business owners who read psychology and Charles Dickens will lead better teams. I don't know, I'm just making this up. I'll end my rant here, but if there's anything I hope people take away from this video, it's to read more books because books equal ideas, which equal cash. Before we wrap, I want to touch on something strange that happens once you've gotten decently good at something. People start asking how you did it. Whether it's someone asking about gear or someone at a workshop asking me how to land clients, or maybe a friend is curious about finally taking their creativity seriously. But the more I explain what I did, especially through this channel, the more I realized that I wasn't just sharing tips, I was teaching. And when people want information from you, they're willing to pay for it. And over the years, teaching has become one of the most powerful and profitable skills I've ever developed. Now, teaching isn't new to me, and I've been teaching since way before I ever had this channel. And actually, I bought my first used camera ever with savings from a teaching gig in South Korea. So technically speaking, teaching launched my entire career, if you want to get really specific. But I don't just mean classroom teaching, and I don't mean English teaching or anything like that. I mean being able to clearly explain what you know to someone else. Because most people, whether they're your friends or professional colleagues, they're not just looking for motivation. They want an actual roadmap. And if you can give them that, you're creating real value, and that can equal real money. That kind of value creation has kind of gotten lost when it comes to the traditional education system, and tons of people just see teachers now as low-paid babysitters. And considering how important they are underpaid. But my point here is that people really don't seem to see teaching as a profitable skill anymore. And in my experience, that's just not true. Now, being a teacher isn't about being the world's top expert on something. It's about packaging what you've already figured out in a way that's clear and honest and helpful so someone else can benefit from it. And just in case you think teaching isn't a skill, think about the difference between your best teacher and your worst. A good class takes a lot of effort. It takes planning and a lot of creativity. And from my memories of school, there weren't that many teachers who really ticked all those boxes. I mean, I can clearly remember maybe 5 throughout my entire academic career who made a real impact on me. I don't know, is that the same for you? And good teaching isn't easy. Like realistically, I wasn't a great ESL teacher, but I think I've learned how to be a halfway decent YouTube teacher. And it takes just as much creative energy as planning the TV shoots I do for my professional job. So yeah, just consider that explaining what you know might actually be the thing that takes your career to the next level. Even if it doesn't make you money directly, learning something so well that you can explain it to others is also going to make you better at the thing itself. Because one of the most reliable ways to learn something deeply is to teach it. Now, hopefully this gave you something to think about, because I genuinely believe that in the age of the internet, with all this AI stuff that's going on, creative skills are going to be more valuable than ever. I'm not saying technical skills, I'm saying creative skills. And if you can get past the myth that creative equals broke, I think there is a lot of fulfillment and yes, a lot of money waiting for you at the other end. And don't forget that if you want more like this, I send out my newsletter every 2 weeks or so, and you can sign up completely for free using the link in the description. See ya.